Every year, over 7.5 million people in the US report being stalked, but most never even realize it until it's too late. What if someone out there knew your schedule better than you did? Knew where you lived, where you moved, even what you wore to bed. Enjoy these stories and try to sleep tight. This is Mr. H. You're listening to Masked Horror. He followed me across 3 states. This happened 5 years ago, and I still don't feel totally safe talking about it. But maybe someone out there needs to hear it. I was 24, living in Michigan at the time, and fresh out of a really toxic relationship with a guy named Chris. At first, he was charming and smart, really smart. He worked in IT, and I honestly thought I was lucky to be with someone so attentive. But he had a temper. I found out later he'd been using a spoofing app to make fake numbers and test if I'd replied to other guys. He even tracked my location through a Snapchat feature I didn't realize was still on. Stuff I laughed off in the beginning started to feel different, obsessive, dangerous. When he showed up at a restaurant while I was out with coworkers, hours after I told him I wasn't feeling well and wanted to stay home, I ended it that night. At first, I thought it went okay. He cried, begged, the usual. Then came the emails, then the fake Instagram accounts, then the texts from random numbers that always seemed to know where I'd been that day. One message said, "That red scarf looks good on you." I hadn't worn that scarf in months until that day. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just someone taking a break badly. This was something else. I felt like I had to get away and moved. I moved a couple of months later. For my work, I'm able to work remotely, so I was able to move quickly. I left Michigan entirely and took a job in Indiana. I didn't tell anyone except my parents, changed my number, deleted social media, the whole thing. I even started going by my middle name at work, just in case. For a few months, everything was quiet. Then one night, I came home and found a manila envelope wedged between the door and the frame. No return address. Inside was a note that said, "Took me a while, but I found you. You always liked games." It was signed with a name only Chris used for me. Not even my parents knew it. I felt sick, like every hair on my body stood up at once. I asked my roommate if she'd seen who left it, and she casually said some guy came by earlier. Said he was my cousin, just wanted to drop something off. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep much the next week either. I started parking down the block, using back entrances, changing my schedule every few days. Eventually, I broke the lease and moved again, this time to Columbus, Ohio. New job, new apartment, tiny place, gated entry though. I didn't tell anyone except one friend who lived out of state. I thought I was safe. Then a package showed up at my door. No return address again, just a plain brown box with a bouquet inside. White lilies, my favorite, and a card that said, "To M," the initial of my middle name. But the part that really chilled me was the handwriting. It was Chris's, no doubt in my mind. I called the flower shop it came from, told them I wanted to reorder the same arrangement. I asked if I could get the sender info. The girl on the phone said it was paid in cash, but the guy left a copy of his ID to make sure the name on the card was right. I don't know why he would do that, but it was him. He was in the same city as me, again. You're probably wondering why I didn't go to the police right then. I did, and like before, they listened, took down the info, and said unless he physically threatened me or trespassed, there wasn't much they could do. But a week later, they found something. Or I guess I should say, someone else did. A neighbor down the hall told me they'd seen a white van parked in the lot across from our building several nights in a row. It had dark tinted windows and hadn't moved. They assumed it was maintenance or security. Turned out it was Chris's van. When police finally searched it, they found wrappers, a sleeping bag, a set of binoculars, and a notebook. Inside were pages of entries, notes on when I left my apartment, when I came back, what I wore, who I talked to. There was even a page that said, "She changed her hair. Looks better this way." He'd been living 2 blocks away, watching me every day. If you've ever had a weird gut feeling that someone's watching you, don't ignore it. Trust me, I did, and I almost paid for it. Chris got arrested for stalking, but he posted bail, and before the hearing, he disappeared. Just vanished. To this day, I don't know where he is. He never showed up in court. There's a warrant out, but nothing ever came of it. And here's the part that still messes with me. I asked the building manager when the apartment I moved into had been listed. She told me it wasn't listed publicly. It was rented by referral only, which means Chris somehow knew before I even signed the lease. He didn't just follow me across 3 states. He was already waiting for me before I even arrived. My doorbell camera caught something I never noticed. I live alone in a small 2-bedroom rental outside of Louisville, Kentucky. It's nothing fancy, but it's tucked into a quiet cul-de-sac, and until recently, I felt pretty safe there. I work night shifts, 2 p.m. to midnight at a warehouse, and I usually get home around 12:30 or so. I started getting a little paranoid walking up to my door that late at night, so last Christmas, my sister got me one of those Ring doorbell cameras. At first, I barely touched it, but one night, I got a notification on my phone while I was pulling into the driveway. It said person detected, front door. No big deal, right? I opened the app expecting to see myself walking up, but instead, I saw a man standing across the street, still, almost perfectly still, just outside the view of the porch light, right on the edge of the bushes. He was wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled low, and he wasn't moving, just watching. I figured it had to be a neighbor or someone walking their dog. Maybe the camera was just glitchy or triggered late, but when I played the footage back, it showed something different. The motion alert had triggered about 2 minutes before I got home, meaning that guy was standing out there long before I pulled up. And here's the worst part. He didn't react to my headlights, didn't flinch when I parked, just slowly turned and walked away when I got out of the car. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept the camera feed open on my nightstand and checked every hour like a crazy person. The next morning, I started scrolling back through the saved recordings, and I felt my stomach drop. The same man had been out there 5 nights in a row, always around midnight, always standing in the same spot, always watching the front of the house. Sometimes he'd be crouched low, like he was hiding behind the bushes. Sometimes he'd stand directly across the street, just out of the reach of the porch light, He never approached the door, never said a word, just watched. If you've got a doorbell camera, you might want to check your saved clips, because the scariest part isn't when someone knocks, it's when they never do. I called the non-emergency police line and showed them the footage. They said they'd do a drive-by patrol, but unless the guy trespassed, there wasn't much they could do. So I took matters into my own hands. I bought brighter floodlights and installed them above the garage. I kept the camera feed open every night. I even parked facing out in case I needed to leave fast. And for a few days, nothing happened. Then one night, I got a new notification around 3:12 a.m. I wasn't asleep. I'd been lying in bed watching YouTube with the sound off. The alert said, "Motion detected, front door." I opened the app. The man was back, but this time, he wasn't across the street. He was standing at my front door, inches away, staring directly into the camera. And then, he did something that still makes me feel sick to remember. He leaned forward, stuck out his tongue, and licked the camera lens. Just slowly, all the way across. Then he whispered something. It was muffled, but I swear it sounded like he said, "I like the blue light." Then he walked off screen. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't go to work the next day. I called the police again, and this time they took it seriously. When they reviewed nearby footage from other cameras and other neighbors' security systems, they were able to ID the guy. But that's when things got even worse. They found out he wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't a local. He wasn't even from Kentucky. He was a former Lyft driver who had picked me up nearly 8 months ago when my car battery died outside of Walgreens. That was the only time I ever met him. The ride lasted maybe 10 minutes. I barely spoke. Apparently, he used a spoofed account and kept his location services off. He had no criminal history, just one flagged complaint for creepy behavior, and that was it. They found him sleeping in a borrowed car behind a gas station 3 towns over. In the trunk were a pair of bolt cutters, a crowbar, and a burner phone full of pictures. Pictures of my house and my doorbell cam. Sometimes the people who follow you home aren't strangers. Sometimes they're people you've already met, even if you don't remember them. He was arrested, but like a lot of other stalkers, he didn't face real jail time. A few months of mandated treatment, some probation, that's it. I moved, got a new job, new phone. I don't use rideshare anymore, and I haven't installed a new doorbell cam because I've learned something awful. Didn't make me feel safer. It just showed me what was already out there. My landlord had cameras hidden in the walls. This happened to me 2 years ago, just after I graduated college. I'd moved to a small city in upstate New York for work and was looking for a place cheap enough to afford on an entry-level salary. I found a listing for a basement apartment that seemed too good to be true. Clean, furnished, and well below market. The landlord, a guy named Greg, lived upstairs. He seemed quiet, older, maybe late 50s. He met me in person to hand over the keys, and he even knocked off part of the deposit as a gesture of good faith. At first, the place felt perfect. It was small, but private. Greg mostly kept to himself, but little things started to make me uneasy. He'd comment on things I didn't think he should know. Like once, I called in sick to work, and never left the apartment. The next day, he asked if I was feeling better. Another time, he said, "The red sweater suits you," on a day I hadn't left the apartment at all. I convinced myself he was just being neighborly, or maybe he could hear things through the vents. It was an old house after all, but something about his timing always felt off, too precise. One weekend, I went out of town. When I came back, the rug in my bedroom was slightly crooked. My charger was plugged in on the wrong side of the bed. Tiny things, but enough to make me wonder if someone had been inside while I was gone. I decided to buy a cheap motion detector off Amazon and placed it near the entrance to the hallway. 2 days later, when I came home from work and found it turned off. Not unplugged, just powered off, as if someone knew exactly what it was and how to disable it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I started doing something I never thought I'd have to do. I checked my vents, the smoke detector, the electrical outlets. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but I knew something was wrong. Then I dropped a pen behind the heater. I reached down to get it and noticed a small, circular hole, perfectly drilled, about the size of a pencil eraser. I looked closer and realized there was a tiny lens inside, a camera. I froze. I did some digging and found out there are thousands of reported cases of hidden cameras found in rental properties in the US alone, and most tenants don't find out until after they move out, or worse, when they show up online. I didn't want to wait until it was too late, but I didn't confront Greg right away. I was too scared. I just quietly packed a bag, checked into a cheap hotel, and called the police. When they searched the apartment, they found 4 more hidden cameras. One in the bathroom vent, one inside the baseboard facing my bed, another behind a small air purifier that he had included as a courtesy, and one above the kitchen light, pointed directly at the shower if the door was even slightly open. Police found a private Wi-Fi network that Greg had set up, completely separate from the one he gave me access to. It was connected to a local server in the main house. That's where they found months of footage, cataloged, dated, and organized by time of day. Footage of me sleeping, changing, showering, eating. He had been watching the whole time. And if that wasn't bad, here's where it gets worse. When they questioned Greg, he didn't even deny it, said it was for tenant safety. He tried to argue that it was no different than a hotel security camera. He was arrested, charged with unlawful surveillance and invasion of privacy. Have you ever wondered why a rental listing seems too cheap, or why a landlord's guest Wi-Fi feels a little too slow? You might want to look around, because you could be on camera right now.